I told myself I was going to practice these habits so that I could continue doing hobbies that I have. So I have a schedule that I'm going to stick by, and today on the schedule I'm supposed to be vlogging. So here's my vlogging video, and I'm going to talk about how your sense of self and validation really cannot be given to you by anybody. And if it is, you are going to see a very hard fall when it comes to being humble, because at some point everyone is alone. It doesn't matter who you are. I've, as a nurse, talked to so many people from different walks of life, and everyone has the same common thread, which is loneliness is inevitable. So, because I'm talking about this, I figured instead of letting you listen to a boring ramble, I'm going to give some tips on how I've learned to cope with loneliness. So, let's fast forward. 2021, I had become single. My ex, who was my partner of 5 years at the time, had moved on. And then I had decided to go my own way, figure things out for myself. Let's fast forward to a couple of months in. He moves on to another relationship, and then I find that I am in no romantic relationships with no prospects on the horizon at all. So what I ended up doing was using alcohol as my friend, because I had no real friends. The friends that I thought I had, half of them moved away. The other half, we were really party friends. We weren't people who met up during the week, except for maybe like a coworker bestie, and even then it was very periodic. Our friendship really stayed with work, and the ex was my other best friend who I talked to all the time. Took up a lot of my friendship with my ex took up a lot of my time, which was willingly given, of course, because we were best friends. We were together for so long. You kind of end up being two peas in a pod. And then the alcoholism's getting worse. I don't realize I have an addictive personality. And I'm seeing this person move on, my ex, and I'm seeing my friends move on with their life. And while I am trying to figure myself out, I'm realizing everybody else is trying to figure themselves out. And the funny thing is when I'm going through things, unlike when I was a teenager or even college years, when you could call your friends and because they did not have jobs and lives of people to take care of, I was finding that people were not picking up my calls. And that validation I was looking for, a lot of times when I was in a room where there was someone who was prettier, or if I was faced with my ex contacting me and me being made aware, somehow it coming up, the significant other in his life at the time, those things that would trigger me, I would turn to the alcohol, which wouldn't help, and it's getting me more depressed, and I'm not taking care of my life, and everything's kind of snowballing into this effect of where my responsibilities are not taken care of, my bills are not getting taken care of, my living situation is not good, my hygiene, my home environment, and then I'm calling people for help and no one's picking up. It left me in such a devastated space where I felt helpless and I felt worthless, borderline suicidal, quite honestly, where I felt like, you know what, I might as well just drink myself to death. And yes, that was one of my coping skills, suicidal ideation from feeling worthless. Trigger warning for anyone who is, And, I know we're all surviving. We're trying to navigate this world the best we can, but I'm just saying that was my mental state. And so I realized I was very alone and no one was there for me, and I decided, you know what, F everyone, I don't need anyone, I'm just gonna be a loner. And I watched YouTube videos, and I learned about stoicism, and I learned about how self-awareness and self-validation really does only come from loneliness and knowing what it feels like to not have anyone to tell you it is okay to do something before you do it. And then I realized the whole thing about me feeling not validated and the whole thing that feeds into my addiction process and alcoholism and all of that is the fact that I was constantly trying to feel validated and feel like I needed permission to exist. And we do this as humans a lot because we also have the human nature to need to be in tribes and groups for community, because in the mammal and animal kingdom and even the fish kingdom, survival comes in numbers, and people look to get into groups. People look to have communities because you thrive when you have community. You have a higher life expectancy. You're gonna have to double check that last part. I don't know if I'm lying about that last part, but I feel like I did hear that. So once I learned that you have to go into the space where you feel so alone, you know, that you now no longer feel the need to impress anyone because you were forced to validate yourself. And then fast forward, I'm in a state now where even though my living situation has changed, and I will have to get into all of that in another video because I'm only giving myself a short time to cross this off my list, off my calendar. But the point is, all of this has come full circle to show that now with finding my own validation, even though I may feel a way about whether I should try to fit in and keep up with the Joneses, now I have this sense of self where I understand I don't need to do that. And if I do that, I know it's because it's furthering myself somewhere, or it's giving myself an advantage in some way, and that I can still go change and revert back to my truest self when and if I need to, which is very empowering. So I say this to say, if you are trying to have a great sense of self and self-esteem, you have to learn to mentally shut everybody out. And if that means walking away and setting boundaries and not talking to people, where I had to come to the point where I even had to stop talking to my parents at a time because they were trying to push their religious and conservative world values and beliefs onto me, despite me expressing my core beliefs that were different. It made me learn to be okay with being ostracized, because, you know, this saying is going to sound harsh, but selling your soul to fit in is not worth the fact that you will not be able to look in the mirror, and you really will be so down and depressed. And that's who I was for a long time, because I was taught to not be my authentic self and constantly seek others' approval. Wow, this was just like a whole 360 conversation. So I don't even feel like I need to talk too much more about it, but I hope this helps. So if you are trying to find your self-esteem, you have to make your self-esteem, and you have to do it by deciding who you are going to be, and you have to stick with it no matter what anybody says, because that's the only way you will know if it is really for you or if you are doing it for others. And if you are someone who's living your life for others and you have to do that for your survival, I completely understand, because I was in that space. And when you're dependent, it's a whole different ball game. But with that being said, I still also want to make it known that when you do have the opportunities to be your most authentic self, even when it's just in your room and you have to take that mask off and stop pretending like you like everybody, or stop pretending that you want to be in this position or in this home, or I don't know, whatever environment or whatever relationship you're in, because you're trying to get to a bottom line, whatever that is, just remember that it is truly, truly in your hands, and no one has to know what your true intentions are. And keep that sacred. Protect your energy and protect yourself. And yes, I hope that was an insight. I hope that gave a word to someone who needed it. And you take care of yourself, and yeah, be well.